The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had witnessed 1,000 wars and ended 1,000,000 more. Its vaulted ceiling shimmered with star maps etched into living crystal, each one marking a civilization that had risen, fallen, or barely survived. Representatives from every major species filled the chamber, armored, robed, scaled, or radiant. At the center floated the council sphere, glowing softly, waiting for judgment. Today's matter seemed insignificant to many, a dispute involving humanity, a young species from a minor spiral arm, known more for diplomacy than dominance. Few paid attention when the ancient delegate Veruin slowly rose from his seat. His species had watched galaxies age. When he spoke, history listened. "There is a reason the first law exists," Veruin said, his voice thin but unshakable. "A reason written in the ruins of dead empires. Do not strike civilian worlds. Do not target non-combatants. And above all, do not harm human children." A ripple of amusement moved through the chamber. Children? The Varkesh Dominion, vast and militarized, exchanged dismissive glances. Their ambassador clicked his mandibles in irritation. "The council exaggerates myths," he replied. "Humans are fragile mammals playing at civilization. Laws should not be built around sentiment." Several delegates nodded. Humanity had no ancient fleets, no god weapons, no fearsome reputation. They negotiated. They apologized. They avoided war. The first law felt outdated to empires that measured strength in star systems conquered. A single human representative stood silently near the edge of the chamber. Ambassador Lena Ortiz did not argue. She did not plead. She simply listened, hands folded, eyes steady. That silence unsettled Veruin more than defiance ever could. He turned toward the council sphere one final time. "You mistake restraint for weakness," he warned. "Humans do not threaten. They remember. And when they are forced to act, they do not stop." The Varkesh ambassador dismissed him with a sharp gesture. The vote was called. Enforcement of the first law was relaxed under strategic exceptions. Humanity was informed through formal channels, wrapped in polite language and hollow assurances. As the council adjourned, Veruin's gaze lingered on the human ambassador. "I am sorry," he said quietly. Ortiz met his eyes. "So are we," she answered. Somewhere beyond the chamber, human colony ships drifted through quiet space, carrying families, teachers, engineers, and children who believed the galaxy was finally at peace. None of them knew that a law older than most stars had just been broken, or that history had begun rewriting itself the moment the council chose arrogance over memory. The colony convoy near the Kestrel Reach was unarmed by design. Its ships were wide, slow, and filled with light, constructed to carry people, not weapons. Schools occupied the central rings. Gardens grew under artificial suns. Children pressed their hands against observation windows, laughing as nebulae spilled color across the void. Captain Aaron Hale watched the scanners with routine boredom. There were no threats listed in this region, only trade lanes and neutral markers. When the first distortion appeared, alarms didn't sound. The computers didn't recognize it as danger. By the time the Varkesh war vessels decloaked, it was already too late to run. The opening strike wasn't aimed at engines or command decks. It targeted habitation sectors. Precision beams sliced through hull plating where evacuation pods clustered, where schools and family quarters were mapped in public records. The first screams never reached space. Fire, vacuum, and silence followed instead. Captain Hale shouted orders that no longer mattered. Communications filled with overlapping voices, parents calling names, children crying for help, systems failing faster than human hands could respond. One transport broke apart entirely, its fragments spinning away like broken toys. The Varkesh commander observed without emotion. This was strategy, not rage. Break the future, and the present would surrender. On Earth, the news arrived in fragments. Distress calls cut short. Sensor data incomplete. Video files corrupted except for a few surviving seconds. A classroom drifting open to space. A child's backpack tumbling end over end. The footage played once in the United Earth Assembly before the feed was terminated. No one spoke. There were no speeches, no shouting votes. Emergency sessions dissolved into stunned silence. Across the planet, families watched official broadcasts with growing horror, then with something colder. Grief moved faster than panic. Anger came later. The Galactic Council issued a statement within hours. Regret was expressed. Investigations were promised. The Varkesh claimed a tragic miscalculation, citing intelligence errors and unfortunate proximity of civilians. Compensation was discussed. Sanctions were debated. The human delegation did not respond. Ambassador Ortiz left the chamber without comment. That absence drew more attention than any protest could have. Veruin listened to the excuses and closed his eyes. He had heard the same words spoken before the fall of other empires. Somewhere in deep space, rescue teams recovered what they could. Most ships returned empty. On Earth, the skies remained clear. Cities stayed lit. There were no riots, no declarations of war. Human networks went dark, one by one, isolating internal channels. Research facilities locked down. Shipyards halted civilian construction and began dismantling designs once considered impossible. The galaxy mistook the quiet for confusion. They did not yet understand that humanity was done asking the Council for justice. The line had been crossed, and the response would not be an argument. It would be a consequence. Human history recorded many turning points, but none like this. There was no single announcement, no leader standing before flags to declare a new age. The change unfolded in coordinated silence. Laboratories that once competed began sharing data without restriction. Energy limits were ignored. Ethical boards dissolved themselves and handed authority to necessity. Projects abandoned as too dangerous were reopened and completed in months. Not because humans suddenly loved destruction, but because grief stripped away hesitation. Every calculation was precise. Every choice deliberate. This was not vengeance fueled by rage. It was resolve sharpened by loss. Shipyards expanded beneath oceans and deserts. Hulls grew darker, denser, layered with materials the galaxy believed unstable. Human vessels no longer broadcast standard identification. Their drives bent spacetime in ways that left no signature to track. Artificial intelligences were rewritten with one priority: prevent this from ever happening again. Military training changed as well. Soldiers were taught history before tactics. They memorized names, faces, colony maps. Not to dehumanize the enemy, but to remember exactly why restraint had failed. The Galactic Council noticed the shift too late. Observers reported human fleets mobilizing, yet no declarations followed. Trade routes remained open. Borders were respected. When the Varkesh petitioned for reassurance, Earth's response was brief. We are enforcing the first law. Nothing more. That sentence traveled faster than any ship. Some civilizations understood immediately. Others dismissed it as posturing. Veruin did not. He ordered his archives unsealed and began preparing evacuation plans for worlds not yet targeted. He knew what came next was not conquest. The first human strike did not destroy a planet. It erased infrastructure. Power grids failed simultaneously across Varkesh space. Military networks collapsed into static. Shipyards were rendered inert by precision pulses that left surrounding cities untouched. Human fleets appeared without warning, executed their objectives, and vanished. No taunts. No broadcasts. Only evidence of overwhelming control. When Varkesh commanders attempted retaliation, their weapons failed to lock. Their fleets found themselves surrounded by ships half their size and infinitely more advanced. Psychological impact spread faster than physical damage. Recordings from the Kestrel Reach were transmitted directly to Varkesh leadership, unaltered, unedited. The message that followed was simple. This is why the law exists. Worlds began surrendering without a fight. Humans accepted every capitulation, imposed strict conditions, and moved on. They did not bomb cities. They dismantled militaries. They did not kill civilians. They removed the ability to ever threaten them again. Across the galaxy, fear took on a new shape. Humanity was no longer a participant in galactic politics. It had become an enforcing constant, quiet and absolute. The war never received an official name because it never fit the definition. There were no front lines, no heroic last stands, no decisive battle the historians could dramatize. There was only a steady sequence of corrections. Varkesh space shrank system by system, not through annihilation, but through enforced disarmament. Their war academies closed. Their fleets were decommissioned under human supervision. Their leaders were removed and replaced by councils bound to civilian oversight. The Dominion survived, but it no longer ruled. That outcome frightened the galaxy more than extinction ever could. When the Galactic Council reconvened, the Great Hall felt smaller. Many seats stood empty, their civilizations having chosen silence over scrutiny. Ambassador Ortiz returned, her posture unchanged, her expression unreadable. Veruin addressed the chamber once more. The first law is no longer advisory, he said. It is enforced. No one argued. Amendments were passed unanimously. New monitoring systems were installed, designed by humans and shared freely. Any attack on civilian populations, especially children, would trigger immediate intervention. Not by vote. By response. Earth declined permanent leadership. Humans refused titles, veto powers, or monuments. They accepted only one role, guarantor of the law. Their fleets withdrew to the edges of known space, remaining visible enough to be remembered, distant enough to avoid temptation. Colonies were rebuilt. Memorials rose where classrooms once floated in vacuum. Children returned to the stars under heavier shields and quieter skies. The galaxy adapted quickly. Old empires softened their doctrines. Military parades grew smaller. Diplomacy regained value, not because of idealism, but because the alternative was unthinkable. Veruin visited Earth once before his death. He stood beneath open sky and watched children play in a park built over an old shipyard. You have become what the law was meant to prevent, he said gently. Ortiz nodded. Yes, she replied. And we will remain so, as long as necessary. History would later debate whether humanity saved the galaxy or terrified it into compliance. The truth was simpler. The first law had always been a warning written in advance. The Council had ignored it. Humanity had rewritten it in action. Long after the events faded into textbooks and cautionary tales, one rule remained unchallenged across every known system. Empires could rise. Borders could shift. Wars might still be fought between fleets and soldiers who chose that path. But no civilization, no matter how ancient or powerful, ever again targeted a human child. Not because humans demanded worship or fear, but because the galaxy understood at last what happened when kindness was mistaken for weakness, and why some laws were never meant to be tested.